Okay, so we'll continue with There's a Solution, page 23 from the Big Book. The observation would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind, rather than his body. If you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking or addicts using bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers or users are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from the lethargy and assert his power of will. The tragic truth is that if the person or man be a real alcoholic addict, the happy day may not arrive. They have lost control. When I was using, I lost control. I had a reason for using every weekend. It was Friday. It was Monday. It was Wednesday. I had a hard day at work. Whatever it may be, I had a reason for my actions. Until the reasons just weren't there anymore. And who cares? I'm just going to do what I'm going to do anyways. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic or using of every addict, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking and using is absolutely no avail. The tragic situation has already arrived in particularly every case long before it is suspected. The fact is that most alcoholics addicts, for reason yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drinking or using. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable to, at certain times, to bring into our conscious with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. I can say that's true for me. I would forget that I peed myself while using, or maybe I had an accident in front of a bunch of people, or the actions I did in order to get my addiction of choice into me. By the time I was ready to use again, everything that I had gone through, I completely forgot. There was no reason of why I shouldn't do it again. It just didn't exist for me. And this is when really you can qualify yourself. You may feel this way, just completely helpless. There's nothing that will stop you. The almost certain consequence that follows taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on the hot stove. So, you put your hand on the stove and it burns you, like, oh shit, I'm not going to do that again. We would like to believe that with our addiction, we could think of it in the same way. But we don't. We'll keep putting our hand on that hot stove regardless, and we don't even know why. There's no rhyme or reason for it. As much as we make up excuses of why we're going to, get all lit up, there is no real good reason anymore. The alcoholic addict may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's how." Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us began to drink or use in a nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sakes, how did I ever get started again?" Only to have the thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll stop with the sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?" When this sort of thinking is fully established in our individual with alcoholic or using tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, going to jail, may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics and addicts throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop but cannot. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching and leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings which the process requires for its successful consummation. That's the solution. Kid you not. It comes down to self-searching, realizing that you have no more control anymore, and leveling the pride that my manliness or my ego is not tied up into my addiction. I'm not better than the person next to me, and I need to confess these shortcomings. And then the process will become successful, provided I can do that daily. I know today, I don't know what it is to be high or drunk or any of that anymore. But I know that if I use, I'm going to screw up my life for sure. That I know, 100%, because it's been proven to me time and time again. Sometimes when I forget, I go to a meeting, and I can hear the person coming in, and I know the things that they're talking about, not physical things, but the emotions that they felt, I will feel again if I go back out there. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. The great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. That is the truth. I'm going to be a little bit long here just because I want to get through one more paragraph that I think is pertinent to what we're talking about today, or what we're trying to get through today. If you were seriously alcoholic or an addict, as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible, and if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could, and the other to accept spiritual help. This we did because we honestly wanted to, and were willing to make the effort. So the truth is, there's two kinds of a spiritual awakening, a burning bush, so to say. I was fortunate enough to receive that. Some people don't. Some people receive what we call a spiritual awakening by an educational variety. So I'm going to read to you what a spiritual awakening is. The term spiritual experience or spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism or addiction has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. It doesn't happen for everybody. The burning bush doesn't happen for everybody. The educational variety, which I have experienced, I just don't think about using anymore. I don't know why it is, but I can tell you for 18 years of my life, every day I wanted to get drunk and high and be out of where I was, who I was, and what I was doing. In the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate or overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. That's not how it always works. Among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics and addicts, such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety. Because the development slowly over a period of time, quite often our friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. People around you will see the difference in you before you do. Why that is, I don't know. But all of a sudden, we catch on that we have become different. He finally realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few expectations, our members find they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently identify with their own concept of a power greater than themselves. Remember, we talked about what your higher power looks like. Please go back in the other videos and do that work. It's very important that we figure out what a higher power means to us. Most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious friends call it God consciousness. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic addict capable of honestly facing his problem in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. The principle is contempt prior to investigation. Said by Herbert Spencer. So I know I'm going over time. I'll try to get this done in 10 minutes. However, the spiritual experience is very, very, very important. And they will happen again and again and again in recovery. I remember when I first came into the rooms, I thought Christian God was what I needed in my life. I've come back to a Christian God. However, I needed to know what the personal criteria was of my higher power. I didn't understand that personal connection. And by listing out your higher powers, like what they're made out of, like what is it that your higher, how does your higher power look? Is it loving? Is it forgiving? Is it kindness? Is it all of these things that we have a difficulty giving ourselves? Is what your higher power has. That's because that's what we need. We need understanding. Maybe your higher power can do that. And remember, the only thing that we need to agree upon about a higher power is it does it perfectly. That is the one quality that our higher power has to have. It can love me perfectly. It can also be forgiving and understanding perfectly. I can't do it perfectly because I'm a human. But God, my higher power, the understanding that I have, can do it perfectly. And that's what I need in my life every day. I really hope you get to a meeting today. I hope that something I said here inspires you. Don't give up the fight. If you don't have that burning bush sensation or that feeling, it's going to come. Just keep trudging the road to a happy destination, and I promise you that your life is going to change. I really hope you stick around, and I hope that you stick around for the next video. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below. I will answer them.